Yeah, I mean, generally, I try and stay out of politics because I think politics is the exercise of power without merit,
Yeah.
and it's a spectator sport. Politics is, people form tribes, often geographically based, often based on where their friends are, and then they drum out anyone who's not politically inclined with them. It's a very tribal behavior, and then they cheer people on, and the whole thing is kind of mindless. And in a purely rational utilitarian sense, voting is a free rider problem. Like purely rational people don't vote. So in some sense, there's always emotion involved in politics, and a lot of emotion. So it's a very difficult topic to deal with. And when you read political commentators, I would say 99% of them are blind, and they are blind because they've picked a side, because they want to see what's going to happen. They want something to happen a certain way, and so therefore they're drowning in confirmation bias. So if you want Bernie to win, you're reading all the Bernie news outlets. You want Trump to win, you're reading all the Trump news outlets. You want Hillary to win, you're reading all the Hillary news outlets, and you're cheering your tribe along while you kind of hurl insults and tomatoes and eggs at the other tribe, right? So I find politics it's a total minefield to walk into that.
It's a minefield, and let's caveat that we're not talking about any candidate in particular.
We're
talking about
not.
a phenomenon.
Exactly.
To anyone who wants to throw a hot coal at us, let's be very clear that we're not endorsing any candidates. We're talking about the phenomenon.
Yeah, that's not a disclaimer. That's basically saying that if you want to understand what's going on, then you have to look at it with no preconceived judgments. Right. And that, I think that's generally true in life. That's not just true in politics. That's true in business when you're making a decision. That's true in falling in love. It's the more of a preconceived notion you go in with, the less you're going to actually see what's happening. So with that mindset, that's why I approach this and I say, okay, essentially, the two-party system that we run under, it's a conspiracy to monopolize the vote. Originally, the founding fathers, I think, were against the idea of political parties, but they couldn't figure out a way to stop political parties without also restricting freedom of speech. And freedom of speech is critical. It underlies the entire foundation of democracy that we have today, or the republic that we have today. There's a reason why it's the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights, not the second or the third or the fifth. Without freedom of speech, you can't enforce anything else for the people. So freedom of speech is fundamental. The problem is we have a first-past-the-post system. In other words, it's a winner-take-all. If you get 51% of the voters, then you get the entire presidency. So then, of course, you get political parties, and political parties are formal conspiracies to monopolize the vote. And you can't have three, because the moment you have three, number two and number three are under pressure to gang up to beat number one, because the number one always takes everything. It's a winner-take-all. So therefore, we're in a winner-take-all system with freedom of speech, so you end up with two political parties. Well, you would think that these two political parties would represent a lot of choice, but they don't. If you look at them curiously, they differ on the details, but they don't differ on the broad things. What do they agree on? The big political parties, they both agreed upon bailing out the banks, paying trillions of dollars to the banks to bail them out for gambling losses, essentially. Both political parties agree on fighting foreign wars. They both want to bomb Libya. They both want to bomb Syria. They both want to bomb Afghanistan. They both want to bomb Iraq. They both want to intervene. So these are muscularly, militarily strong political parties. They both agree on free trade. And free trade, any competent economist will tell you that free trade makes almost everybody better off, except the local people who lose their jobs in the transition. And that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people sitting out there in the middle class, in the Midwest, and the Rust Belt. So there is a reallocation of wealth in free trade. Even though you may be overall better off, there is a reallocation within constituencies and groups. So, and both parties agree that there should be no term limits, that they should be able to hold office for as long as they want outside of the presidency, which is constitutionally restricted. Both parties agree that they should take money from wealthy donors, and there should be super PACs, and there should be labor union contributions, and all kinds of stuff like that. So and both parties, they actually are closer on the immigration stance than, say, Trump is. So what you're ending up with is a scenario that both parties agree there should be no wealth taxes. Both parties agree it should be income taxes. Income taxes keep up and comers down, but they keep the wealthy elite. But the wealth taxes hit the wealthy elite. So you're ending up with a situation where the wealthy elite, and it's not a formal conspiracy, heck, I'm part of it, right? It's not a formal conspiracy, but because they send their kids to the right schools and they read the right magazines and they go to the right cocktail parties and they make the right campaign contributions, they influence the right people, they've just ended up running the country. And they've ended up running the country for their benefit. And essentially, the Republicans and Democrats only differ on which elitist policies are better. And the Democrats also have a very strong platform amongst the people who are sort of, maybe lower class by economic definition. And what you're finding is what made America great originally, I think, was the middle class. It has one of the strongest, largest middle classes in the world. And income inequality and all those things have gotten more difficult. So now the question is, what do you do? How can you change the parties? And the reality is the parties aren't changing. The parties are passing around the presidency like it's a crown or it's a scepter. And you can tell that because a suspiciously large number of the presidents all share the same last name. We had a Bush, then we had another Bush, then we were about to have a third Bush. Well, what are the odds that out of 300 million people in the country, that 3 of the 300 million most qualified to be president on a pure merit basis just happen to be from the same family? What are the odds that the best president happens to be a wife of the former president? So that, I think, people start to see. They start to realize that, this is not, the system is rigged. There's a path dependence here. Who you are and where you come from matters much more than what you can do. And so what you're seeing is, and so the presidency is a democratically elected office by the Constitution. So it cannot be fully corrupted or taken over by an elite. And again, not a conspiracy, but just sort of a system that has formed. And so in that system, the way it's protected, though, from the masses is by two things. One is it's really expensive to run for president. It costs billions of dollars. So if you cannot get billions of dollars, then you can't be president. And therefore, and because you couldn't get billions of dollars without the elite supporting you, all the presidential candidates are elitists. So that's number one. And number two is the media. You can't get the word out because the media is all owned by very rich individual. Yes. It's complicit but again, not a formalized conspiracy sense. You could argue, okay, Rupert Murdoch owns Fox, so it's complicit there, but also in an implicit sense that journalists want to go to parties with rich people and they want to kiss up to them and they want to go, and they sort of went to the same schools with them and so forth. Mm-hmm. It's the same crew, exactly. So those are the two locks, those are the two gates behind which the presidency was protected. And the internet blew the whole thing up. And I think this is literally the last election in which we will see any elite candidates. So right now you're seeing two anti-elitist candidates who are Bernie and Trump, who actually have a very similar platform with each other. Trump is very liberal on social issues, although he can't say that to the Republican Party. Bernie is obviously very liberal on social issues. In economic issues, they're actually both anti-trade. They're both anti-bailout. They're both anti-war. They differ in immigration because Trump's voters think that jobs are a zero-sum game and illegal immigrants are stealing their jobs. And Bernie's voters think that money is a zero-sum game, that wealth is a zero-sum game, and the rich stole their money. So they differ on the details, but they're actually much more aligned than they are separate, although they have completely different styles. But the fascinating thing that's going on is that Bernie is crowdfunding. That's probably the biggest news. Bernie has outraised Hillary every step of the way, and he's done it with tiny checks from lots of small donors. That means that money in politics is dead. Now, Trump is doing it by self-financing, although he's about to switch over to donor or crowdfinancing. I don't know which one. That'll be interesting to watch. But essentially, the money barrier is down because Bernie can crowdfund, or Trump can self-fund, or Bloomberg can self-fund. And now the media barrier is down because of social media. So the biggest news of this election, other than Bernie's crowdfunding, has been how useless TV ads have been. The TV ads haven't done a darn thing. And then on top of it, it doesn't matter what the mainstream media says. The New York Times, Vox, Atlantic, they're screaming at the top of their lungs, the world will end if you elect Trump. And everybody except Salon is saying the world will end if you take Bernie over Hillary. He's unrealistic. He's a socialist. It's not going to work. And the voters aren't listening. All the passion and all the enthusiasm is with the insurgents. It's with Bernie and Trump. And so what you're going to see is this is just the beginning. 2016 is the last election in which the elites even have a chance. I think starting in 2020, every major candidate will be crowdfunded. every major candidate will be social media driven. It'll be Snapchat, it'll be Twitter, it'll be Facebook, it'll be their Instagram, it'll be their successors that will be driving the winners. And the thing that I really hope is going to happen, my personal hope is, again, I'm not that political. I think they're all crooks, to be honest. I think all of them are crooks. Yeah. I don't think any one human being should be ruling 300 million people and trying to tell them what to do. It's just they're too different. People are just too different. So I'm more of a believer in federalism and local government. But anyway, that's an aside. But what I really hope will happen is we will start seeing transparency in politics. So who is going to be the first candidate who is going to basically say, you know what, instead of running it as a reality TV show, I'm going to turn this all into reality TV. I'm going to wear a camera on me 24/7. I'm going to televise every single meeting so you know there's no corruption going on. So you know every time I'm talking to the donors what I'm saying. Not just transcripts, but live streaming video, YouTube channel, tune in and watch the president 24/7. That's what I'm looking for. It's the GoPro candidate wearing a GoPro on their head. But now you could say that's unrealistic. It's actually not. If it's a national security issue, just delay the tape by 4 years. Wait till I'm out of office. So if I have to make a decision, and do we go after Osama bin Laden over here or not, we're still going to record that meeting. We're just going to release the uninterrupted, uncensored video broadcast footage 4 years from now. Imagine what that does. Now that means is every time some secret trade deal is being negotiated, they can't in the back room say, well, just do this for our constituency. Like, well, the American people are watching. What do you want me to do for your constituency? Make the case to them. So it gets rid of all corruption in politics instantly. And I think we're going to see some of the populist candidates of the future running on this platform. Plus, I think voters are watching West Wing. Voters are watching House of Cards. They want to see the revolution, right? They want to see it televised. They want to know, what are you hiding from me? At the end of the day, if you look at cops wearing body cams, right? Cops who have to wear body cams in the stop and frisk searches. Well, obviously the people are better off because now the cop isn't going to beat up some poor person, because they look bad, or get them or frame them, or it makes it harder for the cases where the cop shoots the black guy in the back because he's says he's running away, but really it was set up. Right now, your body cams, that helps. Well, it helps the cops too, because cops themselves have to worry about people falsely suing them or accusing them. So it makes the system better for everybody. And what is the presidency but the top cop? The top cop should be wearing a body cam, absolutely. If you give one monkey power over 300 million other monkeys, including the power to kill them, to torture them, to bomb them, to tax them, to drag them out of their homes, to make them rich, to make them into a living god, if you give them that power, then of course you have to watch them. You have to watch them more carefully than you watch anyone else. So I think that where this heads, where I think this heads is crowdfunding plus social media means that no more elite candidates. You will never see another Clinton or Bush run for office in the future. They're gone. You will not see any political dynasties in the future. They're gone. But on top of that, I hope we will have transparency. I hope we will have term limits. And I think we're going to start seeing movements and platforms emerge within the parties that are currently anti-elite policies. We're going to see anti-elitist policies becoming mainstream. And it's scary for those of us who are elites, and I'm definitely in that category. But at the same time, I think it's a fascinating phenomenon to watch. Technology is taking us from being a republic into being a true democracy. And that's a tough transition.